the recording. And let me also share the slides. This is sharing the just a minute. Okay, so we'll be starting this course where we have two teachers, myself and Professor Parag Deshpande. We'll have the class TA, Mr. Shubham Raj, who is a research scholar working under me, and also Ms. Khushbu Gupta and Ms. Neha Mandare. They are the MTech students. Class timing, you know, the Wednesday this time, that is from 10 to 11 a.m. and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And Friday there will be class also 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That will be taken by Professor Parag Deshpande, and that will be, you have to join in another team to attend that class. For online courses, IIT Kharagpur has already decided that there will be no midterm and end-term examinations. The evaluation will be based on only the assignment, quiz, and the class test. So we have decided that the evaluation for this course will be based on this assignment, quiz, and class test, where the proportion of marks will be 40% for the assignment and quiz, and for the class test, it will be 60%. The process control syllabus basically what normal, this is basically my part of the syllabus. This is not the process dynamics and control syllabus. This is the syllabus for the my part only, that is the process control. So in the process dynamics and control part, the process dynamics part will be taught by Professor Deshpande, and the process control part will be taught by me. Okay. So the syllabus for the process control part is this will be your brief review of the process model and transfer function, review of feedback control, control of time delay and inverse response processes. Then you have a model-based control, direct synthesis and internal model control, which are basically used for designing the conventional controllers. Then we have got the traditional advanced control. I am writing this traditional advanced control because nowadays these are not basically called the advanced control. So earlier it was our advanced control was very popular. So these are basically feed-forward control. These are different control strategies, basically the feed-forward control, cascade control, ratio control, override control. So up to this portion, basically the design of the controllers, design of these controllers is based on the transfer function based. But we can also design the controller using the state space model, which I'll discuss also further. So based on the test, I will also try to teach the controller design using state space model, which contains the state feedback controller, linear quadratic regulator, and the state observer. The next I will teach the multivariable control, where multiple inputs and multiple outputs are involved in a process. And when there is a multiple inputs and multiple outputs, obviously there will be loop interaction, first control loop interactions. So how to analyze those control loop interactions, and based on this control loop interaction, how we can design a decentralized controllers. so that loop interaction is minimized. Or if we can minimize if we cannot minimize the loop interaction, then how can I decouple the interactions? So, which basically the design of the decouplers. The next is the model predictive control, the unconstant DMC and the quadratic DMC. DMC is dynamic matrix control, which is basically one of the control strategies under model predictive control. So this up to this first is basically the syllabus, and I have to cover. I will try to cover this part, but if time permits, I also go into the another aspect, which is basically the nonlinear control. So that's why I put mark this thing in red, because I am not sure about whether I will have enough time to cover this part, this nonlinear control, which involves the feedback linearizing control, backstepping control, and sliding mode control. So this is basically, in essence, the process control syllabus. Since this is the course of a postgraduate level, so I understand all of you have a basic understanding of the process control, which means the undergraduate level of process control. So I will not deal with the sections which deals with the undergraduate level of process control or the basics of the process control. I will just do a review on that. So which that's why the first two items are there: brief review of the process model and transfer function, and the review of the feed, because unless you know how to build a transfer function, you cannot be able to design a controller, or you cannot understand the feedback control strategies. So these two parts are basically the reviews, which I am sure you have already know from your basic process control courses. Also, I am sure you know some parts of this thing, control of time delay and burst response processes, then the model-based control, direct synthesis, internal model control, and the traditional advanced control. Now, in a process control course, is not only a theory. The process control course, if you want to learn process control, then you have to practice also. The theory you have to practice on actual process. But unfortunately, we do not have the actual process with us. So what we can do is we can implement our learning of process control theory on a simulated process and see how it behaves. So for that, we'll also take some examples where we'll simulate a process, process like reactor, distillation column, heat exchanger, and so on. And there we will implement the process control theories. So the books normally I will cover is the Process Dynamics and Control, written by the Seborg, Edgar, Mellichamp, and Doyle. Another book of process control, which has got the Wayne Beckett, written by Wayne Beckett. The third book is the Model Control Engineering by Ogata, where the state space based controller design is available. Fourth book is the Process Dynamics Modeling and Control by Ogun, Naike, and Ray. So these are the four books normally I will refer. Also in this course, the knowledge of MATLAB and Simulink is required, because in here I will give you assignment based on the MATLAB or in Simulink. Even the class tests are also maybe based on the MATLAB and Simulink. So you must know, you must have the knowledge of MATLAB and Simulink. I hope you have the access of MATLAB and Simulink from your home. The next is the systems. What I have told you already, the systems on which I'll be using the process control theory. I'll be using these systems to implement the process control theories. One is the tank level systems. It's pretty simple. I will use the 3 tank in series and the quadruple tank. Then I will use the continuous start tank heater, where basically the thermal or energy balances are involved. Then the continuous start tank reactor system, where basically now it has got components of isothermal reactor where the energy balance is not there, then non-isothermal where the reaction as well as the energy is involved, then the polymerization reactor, and a distillation column. And throughout the course, we will try to use number of case studies to illustrate the process control theories. So we'll start with the first benchmark system is the mathematical model of the. So what we'll do is the first we'll take a tank level system, which basically a 3 tank in series. We are in this 3 tank in series. These 3 tanks are connected in series. Basically, I want to control the level of the last tank by manipulating the inlet flow rate. So if I simulate this process, I have to have a mathematical model for the system. So the mathematical model of the system, which is pretty simple, which we can write for each tank as dH1 by dt, dH2 by dt, dH3 by dt, where H1, H2, and H3 are the tank level or the height of the liquid level inside the tank. F0 is basically your flow coming to the tank. Small a1 is the area of this pipe where the liquid is coming out from the tank, and capital A1 is the area of the tank. Okay, and G is the gravitational constant. So once we write down the equations, then we can solve these equations based on this control objective, where the control objective is to have to control the third tank level by manipulating the pump voltage. So we have a relationship of the flow with the pump voltage, which is given by the K into V. And I have to design a controller. So the problem over here is I have to design a controller for this system. I have to design a controller for this system so that I can control the level. I can control the level of this. I can control the level of the third tank. This problem can be further modified or further complicated if I use another inflow over here in the second tank, which will be now acting as a disturbance to the process, which will be acting as a disturbance to this process. So in this system, normally in terms of control terminology, we use inputs. So inputs are two types. One is the manipulated input, another is the disturbance. The disturbance is also of two types. One is,
excuse me, sir.
Another is the unmeasured disturbances.
Sir, am I audible?
Okay.
Hello.
So, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, some of my batchmates are messaging me that their requests have not been accepted, and they're telling me to.
So after the class, I will request the.
Okay,
I
sir.
will accept their request, right? Not
okay, sir.
now. So tell them. So after the class, I will accept their request.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So the thing what I am talking about is basically in the process control terminologies, we know inputs and outputs. Inputs are basically two types. One is the manipulated input, which normally we use for controlling the variables or controlling the control variables, and the disturbance, which basically affects the control variables. The disturbance can be measured disturbances, can be unmeasured disturbances. And the control variable is the basically which is called the output, which is the control variable. It's like in this case, our output is the level of the third tank, which is the control variable, which is decided by the control objective. And my manipulated input is the V, which is the voltage going to the pump. And the disturbance, if we add another flow in the second time, then that will be the disturbance to the systems. Okay, so we will have the manipulated input, disturbance, and the output. Now, if you further elaborate, how do we control this system? How do we control this system? So in that case, I have to measure this level using a level transmitter. Now, when I am using a level transmitter, this level transmitter now do not give. So this level transmitter take input as physically the levels of the tank. So maybe the DP transmitter or maybe a conducting type of level transmitter. So it takes that input and gives an output. This output can be the pneumatic output, which varies from 0.2 to 1 kg per centimeter square or 0.2 to 1 bar, or it can be from 3 to 15 psi or 3 to 15 psig, 3 to 15 psi, or can be an electronic transmitter giving output signal of 4 to 20 milliamps. Output signal of 4 to 20 milliamps. Okay, so here basically I am getting an output signal in terms of either pneumatic signal or electronic signal. So this signal will goes to a controller. This signal will goes to a controller. So the controller will take this signal. If it is an electronic controller, so it will take this electronic signal of 4 to 20 milliamps. This controller then produce the output signal based on the sum control algorithm inbuilt. Based on the sum control algorithm, it will produce an output signal which will also be in terms of current or voltage, or pneumatic. If it is a pneumatic controller, then a pneumatic signal. Then this voltage will go to the, if it is producing a voltage, then this voltage will go to this pump. This voltage will go to this pump. So this way, this loop is complete. This control loop is complete. Hope it is clear to you. So this system, if we want to simulate, we'll have the we can simulate this in a MATLAB or in a Simulink using these variables. So the areas of the tanks are given over here, and the all other data are given over here. Okay, so based on this, we can simulate this tank, and then we can implement our control strategy on this tank and to understand the process control theory. Now for this case, if we have to design a controller, we have to know the transfer function of these forces. We have to know the transfer function of these forces. So how do we get the transfer function of these forces? So let us try to build the transfer function model for these forces. So if I have to build the transfer function model of these forces, the first thing we have to define deviation variable. We have to define a deviation variable for the original variable, original state variables, which are H1, H2, and H3, and the manipulated input U. So we define X1, X2, and X3 as the deviation variable for the H1, H2, and H3. This deviation is the deviation from the nominal value or the steady state value. So X1 equals to H1 minus H1 steady state. Similarly, X2 is H2 minus H2 steady state. X3 is H3 minus H3 steady state, and U is V minus V steady state. So once we define that, then we write down the equation, we linearize the steady state, the earlier equation. So we have the earlier equation, which is a nonlinear in terms of H, H1. So I linearize this around the steady state values H1 is. So I will have a dH1 by dt linearized differential equations. This linearized differential equation is subtracted from the original steady state equations to get linear equation, to get a linearized equation in terms of a deviation variables. So we'll have a linearized differential equations, which I am subtracting from dH1s dt by k by a1 vs minus a1 by a1 root over 2g root over h1s. So this is, I am subtracting this equation from this linearized steady state equation to get the linearized equation in deviation form, dx1 by dt k by a1 u a1 root over g capital A1 root over h1 is x1. So the transfer function I will get from this, if I take a Laplace transform on this, then I will get a transfer function x1s by us as kp1 by tau p1s plus 1, where kp1 will be given by k by a1 root over 2h1g and tau p1 is by this expression. Okay. This I am sure you know already from your basic process control class, but I am just repeating this. There is no harm in repeating things so that you can recapitulate all these things again. So similarly, I can do it for the second equation for H2, writing this in a deviation form for the dx2 by dt, and I get the transfer function x2s by x1x by kp2 tau pts plus 1. And for the third equations also, I will get the x3s by x2s kp3 tau p3s plus 1. So in this case, I will get k for j for kp2 and tau kp and tau p is given by these expressions. For kpj and tau pj will be given by these expressions, where j is equal to 2 and 3. So finally, I will have x1s by us by kp1 by tau p1s plus 1, x2s by x1s kp2 by tau p2s plus 1, x3s by x2s kp3 tau p3s plus 1. My process transfer function, because since I am want to control x3, the level of the tank 3. So my the process transfer function is basically the ratio of the output by the input in Laplace transform form, in the Laplace transform domain. So it will be x3s by input is the u, so x3s by us. So multiplication of x3s by x2s into x2s by x1s by x1s by us will give me the x3s by us. So the process transfer function gs x3s by us, by multiplying all these things, I will get kp1, kp2, kp3 by this one. So in general, I will get kp, let's say kp, which is multiplication of product of kp1, kp2, and kp3 by tau ps 1s plus 1, tau p 2s plus 1, and tau ps plus 1. So this is basically the methodology of getting a process transfer functions. So once we get the process transfer function, then we can utilize this process transfer function to design the controller. Now let us move to the next system, which is basically the quadruple tank problem. In this quadruple tank problem, we have got 4 tanks and we have got 2 pumps where the liquid is pumped to these tanks. The connection you can see over here, let's say if you see this line, using the pump one, the liquid is pumped over here, and using this valve, it's basically a three-way valve. In one way, this basically it is going to the tank 1, and another part of the flow is going to the tank 4. Similarly, from the pump 2, one part of the flow is going to the tank 2, another part of the flow is going to the tank 3. Now the tank 1 is basically getting the flow from here as well as from the tank 3. Similarly, from the tank 2 is getting the flow from this as well as from the tank 4. Now you can see we have to control the levels of the objective over here is that we have to control the level of the tank 1 as well as the tank 2. Now this level of the tank 1 and tank 2 is basically dependent on both the flows over here, this flow as well as this one, this one. So when let's say if I am controlling this tank 1 using the voltage to the pump 1, then the disturbance is the voltage to the pump 2, because the flow over here is coming over here, and this level is dependent on the flow of here, and the flow from tank 3 is dependent on this level of the tank 3. So in essence, this is a very highly interactive system. So whatever control system we design over here, the control loops are basically interacting over here. If I design two controllers, say, then we have the control loops will be interacting. And secondly, in this case, you can see the problem also is that whether I will control the level of the tank 1 by manipulating the voltage V1 or V2. Similarly, we have to take decision whether to control the level of the tank 2 either by manipulating the voltage of V1 and V2. So all this analysis, which is basically falls into the category of the multivariable control analysis. So this is basically a benchmark problem where this multivariable control analysis will be used. The model for this quadrupole tank problem, this one is the model equation is pretty simple. This gamma 1 and gamma 2 is the amount of flow going to the tank 1 and amount of flow going to the tank 4. Here basically there is a mistake over here. This will be dH4 by dt. This will be dH4 by dt. So please correct it. I'm not so this one will be dH4 by dt. And the data are all given over here. So using this data, we can simulate the quadrupole tank. So that this will be a benchmark problem, can be used later on for understanding the control theory. The next is the jacketed heated start tank. So here basically, although I have written over here is reactor, but here there is no reaction is taking place. So I am putting the feed over here, and in a jacket I am introducing the hot stream so that the material over here is getting heated, and the outlet I am getting the hot heated stream. The equations are pretty simple. So here basically I assume the constant holdup, that means the liquid level is not changing both in the tank as well as in the jacket, and the heat capacities, densities are basically constant, which basically means it's incompressible flow. Since it's a liquid, so it's quite evident. And the equations since it's a constant hold up, so dV by dt F0 minus F equals to 0. So F0 will be equals to F. So the energy balance equations, one for the within the tank. So to dt within the reactor, it will be dt by dt F by V T0 minus T, UA by rho CPV into Tj minus T. And the second one for the jacket will be dTj by dt Fj by Vj. Tji is the Tj in over here, and Tj minus UA, which is the overall heat transfer coefficient into the heat transfer area by rho j Cpj Vj. Rho j is the heating medium density, Cpj is the heating medium heat capacity, and Vj is the volume of the jacket. And this V is the volume of the reactor. The data over here, this is the parameters and the steady state values which are given over here. The control objective is to maintain the temperature of this outlet stream with some desired value by manipulating this Tj in. By manipulating this Tj in. By manipulating this Tj in, this is my control objective. Also, my control objective can be by manipulating this Fj. Okay, so here you can see we have my input is either input is Fj. If I select Fj is my manipulated input, then inputs are the Fj. Then the Tj in. The Tj in is the disturbance over here. T0 is the disturbance over here. Also, this F is also a disturbance over here. So here you can see the inputs are F, T0, Tj in, and Fj. And output is T. As for degrees of freedom calculations, since there is only one output, so I can select only one input. So one input will be selected as a manipulated input, and other three inputs are the disturbance for this system. Okay, so this based on this data parameter and steady state values, we can have a simulated heated start tank in a MATLAB or Simulink environment. The next is the continuous start tank reactor. So this is basically a isothermal start tank reactors, which means there is no energy balance, only the reactions is taking place, so only the mass balance is involved. The reaction taking place is basically A to B and B to C and A to D. This reaction is basically called the Van der Waals reaction. This is called a Van der Waals reaction. So, which is basically a series parallel reactions. We assume for developing the model, we assume this exit condition is the reactor condition. It's an isothermal condition, constant volume, the F in and F out is equal to F, and the only reactant A is in the feed is consumed. So in the feed, only A is available. There is no B, C, or D in the feed. So based on these assumptions, we can develop that constant volume dV by dt is equal to 0. The dynamic model will be if we do a component A balance, then we can write these equations for component A, dynamic equations for the component A. For the component B, we can write the dynamic equations for the component B. Here you can see this CBF term is not there because the CBF is 0 because in the feed there is no B. Similarly, for the C also we can write, and for D also we can write this equation. So this is basically the dynamic model for this reactor. Now in this, our objective in this, our control objective is to maximize the production of B. in this, our control objective is the maximize the production of B. If you look at the reactions, it is basically A to B, B to C, and then A to D. So the side products are C and D, which are basically undesirable products, and the desirable product is the B. So here, basically, if you look at the reactions, the B will increase, the concentration of B initially will increase, and then it will decrease as the time goes on. As the time goes on, because it will be converted to C. Since our objective is to maximize the production of B, so in that case, I will allow the reactant mixtures to stay in the reactor for a certain time so that the B will be maximized. Secondly, since my control objective is to maximize the production of B, that means the output is the CB. Now, if you see the output as CB, then in that case, this equation is important. dCB by dt is important. But this dCB by dt is function of CB and CA only. It's not a function of CC and CD. So these two equations become redundant. These two equations become redundant based on this control objective. So I can reduce this model to two equations, the first two equations only. So based on these first two equations, I will develop the transfer function model of the process. Although I develop a simulated model of the continuous stark tank reactor using all these four equations, but to develop the controller, I need the transfer function model, and I use this reduced order model of these first two equations to develop the transfer function model. So the data for the CSTR is given over here. So based on this data, we can easily build a simulated model for the continuous stark tank reactor. In this case, also we can see another thing over here. If you try to plot steady state values of the F with CV, steady state values of the F and CV, which means solving these equations, putting dCA by dt equals to 0 and dCB by dt is equal to 0. And if I solve these equations for different values of F, I will get different values of CV. And if I plot this CV with F, then I will get a plot like this. I will get a plot like this, right? Which is CV is a function of F. Now here you can see this is basically the maximum value at these values of F. At these values of F, I will get a maximum concentration of CV. So using this plot, I can get what should be the maximum value of F. What will be the value of F to get a maximum value of CB? So in that reactor, I have to maintain that F. Also, you can see over here, you will have a multiple steady state in this situation. That means I can achieve CV value of 1.2015 using the flow rate of 46. Also, I can achieve the same value using the flow rate of 130. Right? So in these two steady state conditions, and these three steady state conditions, if you try to find out the process gain, in this case, what will be the process gain? What is the sign of the process gain? And what will be the sign of the process gain over here? And what will be the process gain in this? So this is your food for thought, and try to find out. So this problem you can see over here. So this is the desired point. But if I am using a controller to control at this point, and because of certain disturbance, if it moves in this direction or if it moves in these directions, the process gain will change. The process gain and the sign of the process gain will change. So the next is basically then we'll take earlier one is the earlier one is basically the isothermal CSTR. Now I'll take the non-isothermal jacketed CSTR. So in this case, I am taking a simple reaction A to B. I'm taking a simple reaction A to B. And in that reactor, basically you have a jacket over here. And the temperature is the T in the reaction mixture, and in the jacket fluid temperature is the TC. And the equations for this, the modeling equations for this reactor is dCA by dTA by VCA minus CA minus R. And dT by dt is basically these equations, where R is basically given by R is the rate of conversion of A is given by the K0 e to the power minus E by RT CA. So based on these modeling equations, we can easily simulate, or you can easily simulate the CSTR in a MATLAB or Simulink environment. In this case, we have got three cases. If we take three cases, in these three cases, you can see the F by V ratio is 1. In all these three cases, the K0 is basically different in these three cases. So K0 is defined means basically three kinds of reactions is going on. And the delta H heat of reactions is basically also is different. E is remaining same. Other parameters is remaining same, but the UA by V is different. So in this case 1, case 2, and case 3, basically the three parameters are changing. One is K0, another is minus delta H, and third one is UA by V. Others are remaining same. Now, if I simulate this process, if I do a input-output analysis of this process, which basically input-output analysis basically means over here in this dt by dt term, if I look at the dt by dt term, and if I put dt by dt equals to 0, then you'll see that this term is basically giving the heat generation term. Heat generation term because it's a exothermic reaction is going on. So due to reactions, there will be heat will be evolved. The amount of evolution of heat due to reaction is given by this term. And from the heat removed from the system is through jacket as well as through the flow of the reactant. So through the flow of the reactant as well as the heat removed from the jacket. So UA by V rho Cp T minus TC. So we'll have, if dt by dt equals to 0, when the heat generation term is equals to the heat removal term. The heat removal term consists of these two terms, this one and this one. And the heat generation term is this one. Now, if I plot this heat, so the whole term, if I call the heat power term, and if I plot this heat generation with the heat removal, then I will get a multiple steady state. Also, if I plot the TC and T, here basically let's say, what is my control objective? My control objective is to maintain the temperature of the reaction mixture at certain value. Maintain the reaction temperature at certain value. Because if I maintain the temperature at certain value, at desired value, automatically because of these reactions, automatically the Ca will be maintained at the desired value. So this output is T, and the input, let's say in this case, is Tc. So if I do a steady state input output plot with T and Tc, then I will find it will be Tc, T and Tc. Then in three cases, for the three cases what I have given over here, this is for the case 1, this is for the case 2, and this is for the case 3, and this is for the case 2. Okay. Now you can see for the case now if I draw a line at Tc is equal to 25 degrees centigrade, that is my 298 degree Kelvin. So if I draw a line at 298 Kelvin, we'll find for the case 1, there is only one intersections. For the case 3 also, there is only one intersection. But for case 2, there are 3 intersections. This one, and this one. Okay. So at all these 3 points, basically in all these 3 points, the heat generation equals to the heat removal. All these 3 points. So these are all 3 steady state points. At these 3 steady state points, heat removal is equal to heat generations. So at specific input values, so input value over here is the 298. So at specific input value, I can have a steady state value, 3 steady state values for the case 2. Whereas for case 1 and case 3, I have got only unique values for case 1 and case 3. So this is basically a situation for case 2. This is basically a situation of multiple steady state. So for the steady state for case 2, we will have 3 values: 311.2, 339.1, 368.1, and accordingly I will have the composition values of 8.564, 5.518, and 2.3959. Okay. So you can see from here in these 3 cases, the controlling the reactor for the case 1 or case 3 is much more simple compared to the controlling the reactor for the case 2. Because in that case, we'll have a multiple steady state. And if I want to control the point over here, if I have to control the point over here, it will not be easy. The next one is the styrene polymerization reactor, which is basically again a case of a non-isothermal polymerization reactor, non-isothermal reactor. In this case, I have got the modeling equations given by, in this case, I will have using initiator, monomer, and a solvent for a polymerizations. So this monomer basically getting polymerized based on certain initiator concentration. And the solvent is there, so that gelation will not take place. And then the modeling equations as given by x1 dot, x2 dot, x3 dot, and x4 dot. And this F4 is basically, F0 is basically calculated from Fi, Fm, and Fs. Fi is the initiator flow rate, Fm is the monomer flow rate, and Fs is the solvent flow rate. And X1, X2, and X3, X4, as the X1 is the initiator concentration, X2 is the monomer concentration, X3 is the reactor temperature, and X4 is the jacket temperature. So we will have an initiator valence, we will have a monomer valence, and then the reactor energy valence and the jacket energy valence. So these are the four valence equations which describes the model of this styrene polymerization reactor. Also, we need here this the R is there, which is basically the change concentration of the chlorine polymer, which is given by this expression, And the K in this expression, you will find this Kd, Kp, and so on. Kp, Kd, and Kt, which will be there. So here basically Ki will be given by these expressions. Ki will be given by, which is basically an Arrhenius law. Ki will be given by Ki0 e to the power minus Ei by RT, where I is nothing but dP or T. So once we have this polymerization reactor based on their parameter values and other things, we can have a steady state heat power and the reactor temperature. We can have a steady state heat power and the reactor temperatures. So here basically you can see over here in this reactor is basically reactor energy valence. So the heat generation term is this one, and the heat removal term is these two terms. So heat removal terms, two terms, this one, which is basically the flow of the reactants, and the heat generation and flow of the reactants, as well as the heat removal by the jacket, and the heat generation term is the basically heat generation by the polymerization reactor. So if I plot this, with the temperature, reactor temperatures, so one is the heat generated heat is basically this term, which is basically sigmoidal in nature, and the heat removal term, which varies linearly with the reactor temperature. This you can easily see from this expression. The heat removal term is basically function of reactor temperature, which is basically these two terms are the linear with the reactor temperatures. X3 is the linear with the reactor temperature. So this is basically linearly, whereas in the heat generation term, the exponential term is there due to Arrhenius law. So this is basically varies in a sigmoidal fashions. Now here you can see for a specific data parameter and data sets, the heat generation and heat removal term intersects in 3 points. Point 1, point 2, and point 3. So at all these 3 points are basically the steady state points, because at these 3 points, heat generation and heat removal term are same, which states that x3 dot or dx3 by dt equals to 0. Okay, so this will basically gives you a multiple steady state. This will basically gives you a multiple steady states, and if we plot TC, with that means the jacket temperature with the reactor temperature, then we will have a situations like this. It will have a situation like this, which I have shown you earlier for the simple non-isothermal reactor. So these are the situations, basically these are the process models or the simulated processes basically I will be using to illustrate our control theory and also to illustrate how easy to control the process or how difficult to control the process. Okay. Also another thing over here in this case, since here you have seen there are 3 points, 3 steady state points. Now if I simulate the dynamic model equations, if I simulate the dynamic equation model equations, and then I plot the monomer conversion, that is with the temperature, monomer conversion with the temperature. The monomer conversion I can calculate. I can calculate the monomer since I know the X1 and I know the CIA, so I can easily calculate the monomer conversion. So I calculate the monomer conversion and the temperature. So I will get the monomer conversion with time. I will get the temperature with time. Now I plot monomer conversion with the temperature over here. In this case, the time is the implicit parameter over here. Time is the implicit parameter over here. So this is basically called a phase portrait or phase plane diagram, phase portrait. So if I do a phase portrait over here, so this line basically means that I have started the initial condition over here. So when I'm solving these differential equations, I have taken initial condition over here, and as time progresses, my solution reaches to a steady state. So it reaches to a steady state values over here. This steady state value is the one steady state value given over here, the steady state value 1, 2, and 3. So the first steady state value is over here. So if I start an initial condition over here, then I will reach over here. If I start from here, I will reach over here. If I start an initial from here, then I will start over here. Whereas if I start an initial over here, I will reach over there. Although I have a steady state point over here, but that it will, if I start initial over here or initial over here, I will never reach to this point. Similarly, if I start initial over here, I'll go nearer to this point, but I will not reach to this point, I will reach over here.
No, sir.
Similarly, over here, if I start from here, I'll go to this point 3, but not to this point over here, which means the point 1 and point 3 is a stable steady state point, whereas the point 2 is the unstable steady state point. So the controlling the unstable steady state point is much more difficult compared to the controlling the steady state point of point 1 and point 3. Okay. So this is basically the analysis for the process systems, and this analysis will be required when we will be controlling the process, or we will be using these control theories on those processes.
Hello, sir.
Sir, can you please repeat once the stable and the unstable steady state points?
So here basically, when we are drawing this one, generated heat and removed heat, right? So these are the 3 steady state points, right? At these 3 steady state point, generated heat and removed heat are same. Is it clear to you?
Why are we calling these steady state points? Because over here, I think is it? I'm not being able to get the definition of what is steady state in these cases, because.
Okay. Let me explain you again. So here basically steady state means x1 dot, x2 dot, x3 dot, x4 dot should be equals to 0. Is it clear?
Yes.
So now if you look at the x3 dot, in x3 dot there are 3 terms, right? Out of which this middle term is basically the heat generation due to the reaction, due to the polymerization reaction. And the first term is the heat removal through the reactant flow rate. And the third term is the heat removal through from the jacket, using the jacket. Okay. So the x3 dot will be 0 if the heat generation term, so that means the second term, equals to the combination of the first and the third term. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So the combination of the first and the third term is called the heat removal term, and the heat generation term is the second term. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Now I plot this heat generation term and heat removal term.
Excuse me, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt in between. Sir, we have class from 11. Another class.
So you may leave.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So in this case, now you can see the heat removal term and heat generation term intersects at 3 points. Intersection means at these 3 points, heat generation term and heat removal term are same. Okay. So these 3 points are basically called the steady state points. Is it clear? Or are you there or
Sir,
already?
sir, the last thing actually got a bit disturbed. The last part of the thing, why heat generation becomes equal
now
to the heat.
If I simulate the process, I will get the monomer I will plot the monomer conversion and temperature. Here basically the time is implicit, which means at the same time I will have the monomer conversion and temperature. So if I solve the model equation, dynamic model equations, I will get the monomer conversion and temperature with time, right? So I leave the time and I plot the monomer conversion and temperature. Now you can see over here at the initial condition of this value, as time progresses, it reaches to this steady state point. Whereas this one is another steady state point, the second point. Except this one, no other initial condition reaches to this steady state point. So that's why this is an unstable steady state point, and for this one is the stable. These two, 1 and 3, is the stable steady state point. Okay. So I'll stop the class over here, and if required, I may discuss this thing later on in the next class. Okay, so I'm ending this class now.